in mind while we are in this webinar. So I would humbly request all the participants to kindly mute themselves during the webinar to avoid any such disturbance. So once again, a very good evening to all of you who have joined this webinar. The future starts today, not tomorrow. Let me extend a warm greeting to all of you on this World Tourism Day, which is being observed today. My name is Alan Antony. For people who don't know me, I am the organizer and host for this session. I work in a private organization in the HR department based out of Noida. I belong to Jaipur, Rajasthan, and that's where I am since March working from home. So that's a nutshell about me. So let me now take this opportunity to first welcome our chief guest and keynote speaker for the session, Madam Vasundhara Raje Scindia ji, Honorable Member of Rajasthan Legislative Assembly and former Chief Minister of Rajasthan. Hearty welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
I
Antony.
also welcome, ma'am. I also welcome our guest of honor, Mr. George Cheriyan, Director Cuts International Jaipur. Welcome to you, sir. I also warmly welcome all the participants who have joined us from far and near, from various cities across India. I also welcome people who have joined us from abroad. Your presence is highly appreciated. I wholeheartedly welcome all of you once again. So let me now take you all through the purpose of this webinar. So as we all are aware that we are going through these unprecedented times, and I feel that these times require unprecedented thinking to make an impact, whether big or small. So during this lockdown and while working from home, I realized that we have become isolated in our own ways, but we have literally become socially distant. But if you realize that we have started, if you start thinking otherwise, you will also see this ongoing pandemic is the time when many of us have realized our hidden talents. You know, children are coming out with creative stuff, women are coming up with handicrafts, cooking, and likewise, there are multiple things. So, this pandemic has given us a chance to explore ourselves, cutting across the age group, the gender, the sector, cutting across all the barriers. So, keeping this thought in mind, I just came up with a thought of why not creating a platform wherein talent from across the country could discuss and deliberate on various issues which are lingering around. So, employability, which is the central theme of today's webinar, is one such major issue in front of us these days. So, are we ready? What should be, our preparedness in terms of getting employable or seeking employability, whether we are fresher or whether we are experienced people? So that's the whole idea and the thought process behind this particular webinar. And there we are today with this webinar trying to ponder upon this central theme of ours, which is employability. So now we move on to the next segment of this webinar, wherein I will be introducing our chief guest to all of you and request her for her keynote address. So we have Mrs. Vasundhara Raje Scindia ji, who is a sitting member of the Rajasthan Legislative Assembly representing Jhalarpatan constituency. She's a towering personality in the Indian politics for over 3 decades now. She had the honor of becoming the Chief Minister of Rajasthan twice. She is a five-time Member of Parliament and has held multiple portfolios as Central Minister in the Union Government. She is a recipient of many awards and is known to pioneer path-breaking schemes for the people of Rajasthan like Bhamasha Scheme, Jal Swavalamban Scheme, and I Start Rajasthan, to name a few. And to add to her latest achievement, just yesterday she was appointed the National Vice President of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Heartiest congratulations to you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We are humbled by your presence amidst us, ma'am. And may I now request you to please take over and deliver your keynote address. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Antony. And good afternoon to everyone who's present today. I have to tell you, I'm still getting used to this method of communication because being a politician, I've been rather one of those touchy-feely personalities that I used to see people up front, being able to look into their eyes and be able to gauge moods and base discussions around that. So it's very difficult to do it on a screen where you hardly see anybody else's faces. But I'm really, really pleased to be here with you for such an interesting topic. And also, I think a topic which perhaps, if you make use of the opportunities that are given to us, then would really go towards shaping our future. And it's just in time, because in the time of pandemic, a lot of people have lost hope. A lot of people have built up hope. Lots of things have happened, but I really do think that out of this can come some amazing opportunities, and we should be able to make use of them. So let me just say, I'm really happy to be here with you today um, at this meeting. There is a book which I'm sure some of you may have read. It's called A Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I wonder if anyone read it. It's co-authored by a gentleman by the name of Robert Kiyosaki. And it has a very interesting saying, and I quote, it says, "Your future is created by what you do today, not by tomorrow." So I think it's something that we need to keep in front of our minds and in our heads, that this is probably something that we need to think about pretty close up. And as our Honorable Prime Minister has been saying quite often to all of us on television and otherwise, that the goal of the government now is actually to try to project and propel us into a $5 trillion economy by 2025. That's the goal. The recent surveys that have been made say that by 2030, India would perhaps be one of the largest economies in the world, behind the US and China. By 2020, that is now, India has the youngest population in the world, with 50% of its population below the age group of 25. So if you compare the adult literacy rate, the youth literacy rate is about 9% higher. But only 2% of the total workforce in India has undergone any kind of skill training. And only 3/4 of the youth in the country have never ever been enrolled for any kind of skill development programs. And here are some of the very, very important findings of something which is called the India Skills Report 2020. And it's quite alarming, actually, when you look at it. It says that the employability in the country today is 46.21%. It says that only 8% of the undergrads or equivalent are hired. It also says that only 3% of those getting out of these ITIs and polytechnics, and us in government, and I know in Rajasthan and other governments, we've spent a lot of our money working towards setting up ITIs in districts, in tehsils, polytechnics, so that we're able to draw in as much youngsters as possible. But if it's only going to give you 3% of those passing out getting hired, that's really alarming, and we need to do something about that. Only 13% of postgrads or their equivalent are getting hired. 17% of those having any kind of management or equivalent degrees are getting hired. And 26% of graduates and 31% of engineers get hired. So what I'm trying to say over here is that higher and technical education systems today might give us a degree, but they don't necessarily confer on us any kind of skill sets. So young adults on the threshold of a professional career in a constantly changing world would know that skill sets are as important as, I think, getting a degree. So when I look at my son and the children around us, and I think of what the goal should be, and I think that it's very, very important that they don't just equip themselves to work in this country, but because the world has become a smaller stage, everybody has the necessity and the need to be able to become global citizens with a global outlook, and therefore have universally employable skills. Actually, they should be so educated that if they went from one country to another, with the exception of the language which they would have to work on, they would be or should be employable at that level or any level. So sometimes it's worrying. I remember that when we started working on skills, which was many years ago, 2005 to be exact, we had something called the Mission on Livelihood. Very small project. But we at that time, those ministries were called labor. And anyone who had anything to do with labor meant people working in construction or people working, those kind of things. When we changed this we called it the Mission on Livelihood Project, because we meant that people have to be able to start connecting with us at that level and understanding that this is not about labor, that this is about a whole new way of looking, a method of looking at things. So we launched this Mission on Livelihood project and then went on in 2014 to create the first and biggest in India skill development project, which was aimed at creating these employment opportunities, which we thought was very important because it was not about me giving jobs in government to people. We have a line outside outside government offices where they say that, where we want to be employed by government. So you can be either employed by government, or you can be employed by private firms, or you can actually employ yourself. These are all the things that we have to look at. These are the possibilities. And I think that it was important for us to equip youngsters with the possibilities of doing all of them or any of them. So RSLDC, which was a skill development and livelihood project that we were starting, went on to become the first of India's skill development projects. And it was perhaps the national model from which all of this skill development and all have started to happen. Through this project, we actually took on the task to see whether we could get hold of our youngsters, approximately 1 lakh youngsters of Rajasthan that we skilled and sent out. And it also showed us that it was possible to train, to equip them with the necessary skills, and then allow them to enter the industry and allow the companies to have a pool of skilled manpower which they could choose out of. Training was offered in many, many sectors, banking, accounting, hospitality, many other things. Then in 2017, we went on to set up what we called RISU, which was the Rajasthan Skills University. Again, India's first government-run such university, and it proved to be a game changer. And when I see the youngsters that come out of it, it really makes me feel proud, because I feel that some of these things have actually met, but we need to do a lot more. Alongside this, we also had the Bharat Skill Development University, which is India's only multidisciplinary skill university at the moment. So now we have the tools to hone the skills, and this increases the chances of the youngsters of getting employed. So people said, what are the kind of things that you can go in for? What is it that what are the things that we can do? Some small, some big. I'm looking at the smallest at the bottom of the line. I remember in 2016, we set up a 12-bedded dialysis unit in my own constituency with the Japanese firm. And I remember people thought, what a waste of money, because it's only that many people and serving only one constituency. But the response from smaller places was unprecedented, because remember, to get a dialysis, people had to travel for hours, sometimes half a day, sometimes a day, to get to a place which will offer them that. Now, with the training in small places of these young men and women, and so many other people in the healthcare field started to show an interest, we train them, we continue to train them, and they have not only become an asset to the small districts, but they're also doing a great job now in, let's say, for the state. Then you have training of women, which we've been doing just now. The training of women, people again, as I was telling you, women maybe go into the field, but do not get the kind of opportunities that most their counterparts, male counterparts, get. But the JCB plant, which was a manufacturing plant in the Mahindra SEZ, boasts of a huge women workforce who are now doing some great work in welding and handling of lathe machines. What a strange thing. Can people even do that? I'm not going to the higher parts where you become PhDs and are doing amazing things. I'm looking at such small subjects where you can actually get people at the rural level employed. Today, these women have learned from scratch, from basic training, and they are proud representatives of what we call the Made in Rajasthan platform. So what did we do? We used a very simple strategy: educate, train, skill, reskill if we required that, and then employ. So this is something that has been happening. And sometimes you look at it in a geographical sense, like say a place like Barmer will have a whole different skill sets that were required for, let's say, something like the petroleum petrochem complex that is coming up just recently. Um, Someplace else, like this COVID pandemic, because of this COVID pandemic, many places in Kota and others, which are bordering Gujarat and bordering Madhya Pradesh and bordering Delhi and Haryana, have started doing small things like creating this PPE suits. They went, learned, came back, and are doing a great business in these. We are actually exporting some 23 lakh and more outside to other countries, and they're being done by very small. So there is dignity in labor, and I don't think that it's that it's sometimes when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we say to ourselves, well, we can't do small things like that. I think there's a dignity in labor because even industries like Apple began in a garage, and from the garage, I mean, they've taken over the world. So any of these, as long as we're able to sweat, work hard, use our minds, and and with discipline, work at the job that we've taken up, I'm sure we can make that a success and make things happen. And the employability is only given or helped along by the education system of the state and also the support system through the government. So now, of course, we are moving online. It's a whole different ball game. Everyone's going digital. And any other firm, I mean, you could be doing any job, but if you have any kind of skill set that relates to any kind of social media or digital marketing, that firm is very pleased to really go out and work with you. So any kind of requisite ICT skills are welcome. So in Rajasthan, what did we do? We did it for young people. We had DigiFest, and these were the first of their sort in the country. Youngsters from Rajasthan and from across the country participated in what we call the hackathons, and this created the right ecosystem for introducing IT as part of those skill sets to enhance the employability. This is not all. I mean, when we put this package together, it's extremely important to see that the basic life skills, which would be imparted to us by our parents, like keeping clean, hygiene, uh, seeing that the nails are clean, seeing the hair is brushed back, all of these things make a basic difference. Putting a room in order. These are things that parents really insist their kids should learn. And this is a basic skill set that is very important as we go along. These actually end up in helping us be confident in ourselves, making us self-sufficient, and most importantly, giving us a sense of discipline. That is really, really important. And self-reliance, after all, is the basis of what now the Prime Minister is calling Atmanirbhar Bharat. I'm sure that some and most of you are familiar with the Atmanirbhar Bharat program, which is really a mission to build a self-reliant India. So I was saying here that the new education policy, which has now come out, is allowing us choices and allowing the youth a direction in which to go. And really, if the government, the job creator, the provider, they come together to shape an educational curriculum, then that kind of curriculum becomes much more useful to the young who are out and who want to globally straddle the world and be able to move from an industry to another, and to be able to move from any part of the country, any part of the world to another. It's very important that these kind of curriculums be put forward to them, where they are able to choose and pick and work along with what is going to suit them in time to come. So I look to see, and I see from healthcare to Medicaid to indigenous defense production, small things that are being done. All sectors are adapting more and more to a fresh, self-dependent approach. So in a short span of 2 months in this pandemic period, you see lots of people, I mean, go from nothing to something. There's confidence in which they actually start to believe in themselves. In fact, in a short while, maybe we will be suppliers, we'll be part of a group of people who will supply the coronavirus vaccines to the world, which I think is a huge step in the right direction. So these are all the things that we're going to have to look out to. And I think that a lot of things go into the courage of the youngsters, the ability of the government to be able to support them, the importance of being able to put a curriculum together with industry, which is going to be useful to put those people, set them on their feet. And I say at the end of that, it is not just about what you finally read in the school or what you've been taught, but it's also about what you end up teaching yourself if you take out all these important things and learn lessons from the steps that come up as you go along through these opportunities and experiences. I've managed to interact with a lot of young people during the course of this lockdown, and I was impressed to see that a lot of them utilize this time by taking up courses online to hone their skills, reading, understanding, talking to each other, and making a difference. And I'm really proud of that. So one has to strive to be the best version of yourself. Try to attach self-worth in the form of skills and in the form of abilities. Become an asset to yourself first, because if you're an asset to yourself, then you're going to be an asset to whichever corporation actually works with you, or whichever MNC works with you, and whoever offers those jobs to you. And let me tell you one thing, these corporations, MNCs, and job offers, they will follow you if you keep all of these things in mind. So I think that life has thrown you all a curveball in the form of this pandemic. I think it should be taken as a lesson, and one should grow from this situation. I really don't think that I have to say very much more to the youngsters, because as I see over these last 6 months, I can see the difference. I can see the thinking. Yeah, I'm sure there are some that have atrophied, but there are a large number of those who have grown, and who have grown beyond what they had thought they would be able to, and who had thought that we would have to live within certain parameters because of pandemic. That pandemic has actually given them the opportunities they would never have thought about. So let me wish you every success. And let me just tell you that the world is your oyster. There are so many things that have come up here before you, and the opportunity to sit back, to think about it comfortably without rushing into anything, that kind of opportunity has also happened to you. And I think that we should take that squarely, look at it squarely, and decide that this is going to be the opportunity of a lifetime and make it happen for ourselves. So good luck to you all. And thank you again, Alan, for having me. It was very kind of you.
Thank you
And
so much.
I want also to say how happy I am to be here with Mr. Cheriyan. Mr. Cheriyan, I've had a lot of interaction with Pradeep ji. And as you know, that the institution that you set up in Jalana in 2005, a lot of it was when he and I worked together for this. And in a manner, government partnered cuts and helped it gain that status in NGOs. And so I'm really, really happy that you are with us here today. I will, after this, get in touch with Pradeep ji, because we've had a long working relationship. And I look forward to hearing you now.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you very much for that wonderful insight that you have given us. And let us now move on without much ado, move on to the next segment of this webinar, wherein I will be introducing our chief guest of honor to all of you. So he is none other than Mr. George Cheriyan. Mr. George is the director of CUTS International, an Indian origin international public policy research and advocacy group headquartered in Jaipur, Rajasthan. So he is having 36 years of experience in the development sector and has wide experience of consulting for bilateral and multilateral agencies. At present, he is a member of the global think tank group in sustainable consumption. He was awarded the prestigious International Consumer Award in 2013 by American Council on Consumer Interests for his significant contributions to the welfare of consumers on the international arena. He has also received Rajasthan Swachh Award 2016 from the then Chief Minister of Rajasthan and our chief guest today, Madam Vasundhara Raje Scindia ji. It's a pleasure to have you, sir. May I now request you to please take over and share your thoughts with us. Over to you, sir. You have to unmute yourself, please.
Thank you, Alan. Chief guest of this webinar, Madam Vasundhara ji, organizer of this program, Alan Antony, and participants of this webinar from across the country, from various states and outside the country. Good evening to all of you. Also, thanks to Madam for the kind words about good words about cuts. It is wonderful to meet you again virtually on this platform. Madam had already spoken about the theme of this webinar, employability in the context of the pandemic. Very inspiring and informative speech based on the vast experience of Madam being with the central government, with various ministries, and also being the Chief Minister of the state twice. Touching upon the various aspects of this particular topic, and concluding by mentioning about the Atmanirbhar Bharat and various initiatives taken under this particular initiative. I think that is a very good beginning and set the direction and foundation of this webinar. I don't think I need to tell anything more about the topic of this webinar, since Madam had already mentioned. I would like to just mention, as all of you know, employability is the quality of being suitable for a paid work. Or in other words, it refers to the attributes of a person that make that person able to gain and maintain employment. It is not just gaining employment and maintaining employment. There are, four very important aspects which Madam had already mentioned when we are talking about employability. That is the skills, the knowledge, the technology, and the adaptability. When we say the adaptability, it is to enable them to enter and remain in the employment throughout their working lives. So these four components are there. Madam had already mentioned about various skill mission and to make use of the knowledge and things like that. I'm not going into the details of that. And this employability, a new study shows that even various universities are ranked based on the employability of their graduates, So it is very important, today's education, not just by providing a graduation or a post-graduation, and even the university's rank is linked to the employability of their graduates. I'm only mentioning about the topic only this much. When we are talking about just a brief about the issue of unemployment also. Before the pandemic, in the month of March, our unemployment in the country at the national level, our unemployment rate was 8.75%. And the lockdown started on 25th of May. A lot of people lost their job. And suddenly in the month of April, this unemployability had quickly increased into 23.52%. Not only this was an issue affecting our country, India, even a lot of people working in the Middle East and across the world, all the countries were facing this problem. But one good thing, I'm not going into the details of that, like Madam had mentioned about various initiatives taken by the government. By August, this unemployment percentage, it shows that it is only 8.35%. That means we have reduced the unemployment rate to a level before the pandemic. Before the pandemic, it was 8.75. But because of the various initiatives taken by the government and the people, the capability of switching from one job to the other, the pandemic had resulted in, you are losing a white collar job. Immediately people had switched that job, which resulted in, by August, we could limit this unemployment percentage by 8.35%. I'm only mentioning about this, about the topic of this webinar. As all of you know, as Madam also had mentioned, I'm coming from the social sector, the non-profit sector. So I will just mention few things about the social sector. In the globalized world, the state is withdrawing from the welfare character. That means when I say state, it is the nation state. Is the welfare character of the nation state is shrinking. So that space is occupied by the civil society. In a country like India, no government will be able to deliver alone. So to reaching out to the masses and to deliver, even making the people aware about various schemes and programs, the civil society play a very key role. And the size of this sector, it is few years back data, because the current data is not available. It says that India is having 4 million civil society organization. Majority of them are in rural areas and small. What does it mean? India is having 3 NGOs per 1,000 people. And today morning I was reading, this is more than the hospital beds available in the country. The hospital beds are much lower than this. Every 333 people are having one NGO, whereas the hospital beds are only 0.58% per capita we are having. And about 25% of this civil society is working in the religious sector. About 41% is in the community and social service, 20% in the education, and about 14% are working in other sectors. And out of this, 59% of the civil society organizations are working in the rural area. And these NGOs put together is having a 5 million paid employees. And what is the reason? 73.4% of the NGOs are having no paid staff or only one paid staff. So the remaining almost 25% of the NGOs in the country is employing about 5 million full-time paid. And the turnover of this sector is about 10.8 billion. Otherwise, 803 crore is the turnover of this sector. I have mentioned some of these data to get an idea. Like in any other sector, the non-profit or the social sector is also equally important. And just 2 points also I want to just mention. When we are talking about social sector, and the employability in that sector, many of the issues that we are working, for example, consumer protection or child safety or road safety, or right to information, there is no formal courses available in this country. So what we are looking is, your basic graduation or formal education and your basic capability or the aptitude to adapt to this particular sector. So based on that, we hire the people. And one more difference is they, unlike any other sector, this is remunerative, this sector, as well as, you are getting the mental satisfaction also. You are not just working for earning the money. By the end of the day, you are having the mental satisfaction that you have, done your bit. You made your contribution in addressing one of the issues that our country is facing. That is the difference of this particular sector. I will just say a few things about our organization, CUTS International. Madam had already mentioned about that. CUTS, Consumer Unity and Trust Society, is a Rajasthan registered society. Our beginning was very humble. Earlier also, Madam had just mentioned Apple started in a garage. Like that, CUTS also started in a garage with a zero budget. 1983, through a rural communication initiative. In 1984, we got registered. But in the last 36 years, we have grown both programmatically and geographically. Presently, we are an Indian origin international organization. I'm not sure whether there is any other NGO which had gone internationally this much, because we work in more than 30 countries directly and having 6 overseas centers, 3 in Africa, 1 in Lusaka, 1 in Nairobi, and 1 in Accra, and 1 in ASEAN countries in Vietnam, in Hanoi, 1 for Europe in Geneva, and 1 in Washington, DC. which is doing research of Indo-US trade and things like that. So we have grown. So it is a Rajasthan registered society which is having a national jurisdiction. So Jaipur is the international headquarters now, and programmatically also various sectors we work. We started basically as a consumer organization dealing with the traditional consumer issues, but we have graduated from there and presently dealing with competition, regulation, international trade policy issues, and of course, good governance is our main area of work. So several work, whether it is road safety or the power sector in the state or in the country, many sectors we work. And in Rajasthan, we work in all the 33 districts. Our grassroots center is located in Chittorgarh, in the Udaipur division. From there, we work at the grassroots level on all the traditional development issues like women empowerment, child rights, people with disabilities, natural resources management, and things like that. So what I want to conclude that, introducing the non-profit sector, I want to tell the youngsters that there is a possibility of employability in the non-profit sector as well, and you can do a lot working with the government. We usually say, Madam had mentioned about various schemes and programs, making the government services workable for the poor. In that role also the civil society organization can do a lot. So I will conclude here because Alan will be talking in details about the theme of the webinar. It was once again, it was wonderful to hear Madam giving the keynote address, and very happy to be part of this webinar along with all of you. So, thank you. Over to Alan.
You have to put that on. You will have to put that.
Alan, please unmute yourself.
Unmute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. It was a very insightful talk, and I think you gave a perspective, you gave us a thought from the employer's perspective. So be it a social sector, I think that was very thoughtful of you. So I will now quickly move on to the next segment, wherein I will try and with whatever experience I have had, will try to sum it up and throw some light on the central theme of this particular topic, which is the employability. So as ma'am and sir, both of them have beautifully told us that various segments or various aspects of the employability, the current state, the future, and the thought process that they've shared. So according to me, what I feel employability is, so employability is nothing but having and using your skills and abilities to be hired and stay hired. That's for me the perfect definition of employability. A person is employable. When do you feel? So when I get a job offer, when I get an offer letter, so am I employable? So we feel that, okay, yes, I am worth. Yes, you are worth, and you have got yourself hired. But there, it doesn't stop there. It goes beyond. So it continues till you are hired in that particular organization or in that particular segment. Now, how do you stay hired? Now, getting hired is a different process. Staying hired is again a different process, which is a continuous thing. So for that, you need to sharpen yourselves continuously. So I will not speak much. I'll just give you 4 points which you can put it across any industry, any segment, wherever you work, be it a social sector, be it into your private organizations or anywhere. So those 4 points are, the very first point is have a positive attitude or positive approach. Now people also, there is a misnomer that if I question somebody, that's not something positive, that becomes negative. No, questioning something, criticizing something is not something negative. But what is it that you are looking at? Are you looking at a solution, or you're looking only at criticizing, right? So therefore, that positive approach has to be there in everything that you do and say, right? And today, not only what we do and say, whatever we see and we do on social media also, right? So that approach has to be there in everything. So now these days, social media has taken a lot of our time and a lot of our space. Today, we are also sitting and having this webinar in a virtual space. So there is a positive approach to deal with any such things. So therefore that capability is one. The very next thing is feedback. So we Indians generally are we are not we don't take feedback directly. We take it in a generally in a negative connotation. But why do we do that? So I would like you to go back to your childhood. Just recollect your childhood days when you were small, when you made some mistakes. How were you getting the feedback, right? Was it a physical feedback that was given to you? Was it a verbal feedback that was given to you? Try to recollect. Now cut to your school days, your professors, your teachers. How were you getting your feedback, right? Now the same person, when he or she joins a professional organization and he or she gets a mid-year review or an year-end review after 6 months or 1 year from his or her manager, it becomes very difficult for that person to understand that feedback. No, 1 year I have done this much work and today you are telling me this. I can't accept. So therefore, accepting and using feedback definitely has to be inculcated. See, if I'm giving you a feedback, that is always not to show you or put you down. There is always a constructive feedback. So the meaning of constructive feedback is you are getting yourself come out of that particular mistake that you are doing, right? So that's accepting and using feedback. The second last point is flexible. See, these days you'll have to be agile, very much agile, because it's a very highly competitive market. Anywhere, any industry you take, be it social sector, be it IT industry, software, FMCG, anything you take, the person needs to be agile, because the competition is so high that if you are not skilled, if you are not flexible, if you are not adaptable, there are always others behind you who are ready to take that position, right? So you need to be agile in your work, in your thought process. And the last one is, it's very dear to me, I say leadership. So the simple definition what I put for leadership is, when I start thinking about others, keeping others in mind, that's the point I have started thinking as a leader, right? So there is a difference between a manager and a leader, right? So that's the difference. You lead from front, but yes, not forgetting yourself and keeping others' perspective in your mind. That's the point wherein you start, you know, acting as a leader, behaving as a leader, and exhibiting your personality as a leader. And towards the end, after these 4 points, while pondering on this topic of today's session, I found that we talk about what we are going to do tomorrow, what we are going to do next month, what is our plan for next year. We plan way ahead. Meanwhile, our life zips away. The speed with which life is going, it just passes by. So therefore, the truth is, we will never have more time than we have right now. So therefore, the topic of today's discussion, my dear friends, future really starts today. So if you're really thinking to do something, be it anything, be it small, big, anything in your life, creative, professional, start, or try to work towards it from today. Do not wait for tomorrow, because that is not in our control at all. Do not worry about situations that are not in your control. Pandemic, economic situation, whatever situation is there around you, it is not under your control. Whatever is in your control, with resources with limited resources, whatever you have, try to start and do whatever you plan today itself. And I hope definitely that will work wonders for you. With this, I conclude my talk. So we will now move on to the next segment of this webinar, that is the Q&A session. Now, for the ease of all, and for the time, keeping in mind the time constraint, I had asked all the participants to send the questions to me if at all they have any. So we got many questions, and thank you all for that. What I have done is I have taken questions which were familiar, which were basically in line with the topic of today's discussion, and I have clubbed those questions. So we have got just two questions initially. So one is for ma'am and one is for you, sir. So I will begin with the question for ma'am. So ma'am, the first question is, you have joined and have been working in a sector which requires extensive and regular interaction with people. What advice would you like to share with people who would like to build such connect with people on multiple social issues, not only pertaining to politics? That's the question.
No, is my, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because this particular type of work, we are talking about education, skill, and employability, doesn't necessarily have to do just with government. If you were doing it, I think, Mr. Cheriyan, if you were doing it, if we were doing it, we need to do some basic things which are almost alike. One of them is traveling extensively within the area of the operation that you've marked out for yourself. So let's say for me, it was Rajasthan. So it was extensive traveling, means at least three days, maybe in each district to find out what was happening almost every other month. The point was being able to go to those so-called ITIs that had been put up, the polytechnics that had been put up, occasional education modules that had been put up that were supposed to be interesting, as people said they would be. These were, it was very important for us to go. Then the basic structure of setting up the university for skill development, for setting up loaning, what do you call it, working out loaning capacities for the people who wanted to do these kind of things or set up small works for themselves. For those who are going to join private, because I had the most problem, most people wanted to do government jobs. I think everyone can see why a government job was probably the most attractive of them all. But whatever it was, the fact was that I was trying to tell them that a private job is as good. And in fact, I think the self-employment, if you're able to do, is perhaps the most rewarding of all. And it was very, very difficult to get them to understand that being dependent on government jobs should not be the be-all and end-all of everything. So for that, education is highly important. And so the systems that you put up for education, the kind of teachers that are trained to go into the field to deal with those people, and the kind of college education, the kind of technical education, and then what we were wanting to do is set up things like for research. And that was the last, it was important, and that had to be put up, because when you bring all these things together, it creates the background for the enrichment of the life of those kids who will actually want to go out and work in those particular fields that we are now just talking about. It's not easy, and I think it requires a lot of hard work, but it's highly rewarding at the end of it. And I have to tell you that in the 4 years, 5 years that I managed to work, that I managed to go out into the field, that I had interaction with the youngsters, it was very rewarding. And it also helps because sometimes you see the issues which you think are very important when you sit at, let's say, the center, which is Jaipur. When you go into the field, you see that it's really not that important, and that there are suggestions from the students and from the teachers about how you could tweak that a little bit to make it much more rewarding for that particular module. I think, therefore, it's extremely important to travel. It's extremely important to be able to deal at face-to-face value with your students and your teachers. That's very important. And if you're able to do that, then this is not something that's going to happen overnight. So when governments come to power, people start to think that, okay, you have been given the mandate to change everything in the next 4 years, because the 5th year I don't want to touch. 5th year and the 1st year, because those are the ones that you're electioneering in. So you have 3 years to make our dreams come true. And that's extremely difficult. I keep trying to tell them that's not how it happens. To make anyone's dream come true, we have to work together. You have to understand the parameters within which governments work, and the governments have to understand the mindset of the people that they're dealing with. And if you're able to put those two together and put in industry and everything else that goes with it, I'm sure that those things work.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
But yes, traveling, meeting, talking, interacting is extremely important, because without that you cannot put any kind of viable working plan into action.
And that's true to any sector that you wish to work for. Right, ma'am. Thank you. And there's a next question. So next question is for you, sir. So the question is, If I'm interested to get into social work, how do I make it my profession? What courses can you suggest for making it a profession in future?
Yeah.
You have to
Mr.
unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
You have to unmute.
Yeah, sorry. Uh, Thanks, Alan. There are several universities and institutions which is offering courses now. For example, MA in sociology or MSW, even MBA in rural management, even institutions like Tata Institute of Social Sciences and all, regulatory governance or Delhi School of Social Works. There are a number of universities and institutions which is offering courses. But what I want to say is, you don't bother about those courses. Uh, what matters is basically your interest to work in this sector. We take people, like I have mentioned earlier, many of the issues that we are working, we don't have any formal courses in the country. So if you have a basic master's degree, and if you have the aptitude and the interest to work in this sector, we hire the people and get them oriented. It is not a big, rocket science that any of the issues that we are working. If you have the basic capability, we can get you oriented for this sector. For example, somebody like me, I am in this sector working for the last 36 years. I have participated with the madam in various pre-budget consultations, and we have given our recommendations to government of Rajasthan, as well as we have attended at the national level. I don't have any background in economics or anything like that, but we were able to give based
Practical.
on yeah experience. And madam had mentioned at the beginning about our founder, Mr. Pradeep Mehta, who started this organization way back in 1983. He's a columnist in now many of the national dailies on various issues, whether it is economic issues or competition or regulation. And he was the only person who was appointed in the advisory committee of WTO twice. A panel on future of trade, which advised the DG of the WTO. So up to that level, based on the vast experience, this expertise, as cuts as a whole, or I mentioned about the founder, all of us were able to gain this particular experience. So that is not a issue. If you have the basic interest, this sector is offering you a big opportunity. Also, if you have the qualification in any discipline, because we are hiring people who are done their law in London, or I was having a project on traffic calming strategy. So the project manager of that a particular project was somebody with an MTech in transportation engineering. So somebody with an engineering background or a law background or any social science discipline can get into this social sector. Basic thing, what it matters is your interest and how you are developing your experience, expertise based on your experience in this particular sector. So that matters, so don't have to worry about what course I should do about. All are welcome to this sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Basically, what you're saying is, if you have the inclination, go for it. There are people who will get you trained, basically.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we move on to the last and final question. This is probably for you, ma'am. So the question is, where do you see the future of Indian youth? We are a very young country. What is your vision for the youth of India?
See, we have something that most other countries don't have, and that's the young population. When everybody is going grey, we're actually going to be young, invigorated, and full of imagination and intention to work for our country. That alone pushes your country way beyond anybody else is going. So I'm really seriously thinking that with the 50%, as I was just looking at the figures again, if you look that in the current year, India will have the youngest population in the world, 50% of its population below the age of 25. Look at the kind of possibilities that are going to be open to us as these kids grow into the next 25 years. Every other country is going to be grey. So if we work with, if we decide, all of us decide that we're going to, for ourselves and for our country, decide to educate ourselves properly, decide that we've taken the kind of subject that we want to, because this kind of subject is going to not work just for us, but it's going to work for the economy of the country and also for the betterment of the country as time goes on. If we dedicate ourselves to particular things, if we educate ourselves according to those particular things, if we spend this next 10 years or 15 years getting the basic structures laid down, and if most of all, we bring discipline into our lives, because that's the one thing I think that at the end of the day, Indians need to incorporate. That is, and I'm not saying this for everybody. It's not a sort of a blanket thing, but yes, that's one thing that most of us need to bring into our lives, because with discipline, with education, with the right kind of thinking, and with the right direction, and of course with the right leadership, the sky's the limit. And that's why I always say to the youngsters that in time to come, all of this is going to be just what they say. You're going to be the heirs to all of this, because there's going to be a huge gap that nobody else is going to be able to fill. So get ready for it. As you rightly said, and as this Robert Kiyosaki rightly said, your future is created by what you're going to do today, not tomorrow. So you need to be able to sit down and get this thing straight. And now I don't think that we can go on depending, my parents said this, my mother told me, my father told me. We have to, at some point in time after we're 18, take our own responsibilities and mark our own course. And that course has to work with our country. And if we work together at it, and mostly, I mean, you don't really have to go out of your way for it. It's something that will happen naturally. But the sky is the limit for us. And anyway, I see that in certain subjects, we are way beyond everybody. For example, we don't take calculators into exams. We don't need to, because we can do that calculation in our own minds. We're top with maths. We're great with IT. We're great. I mean, there's so many subjects that we are masters of. And that you will see a lot of countries actually allow Indians who are particularly proficient in a particular field to come into their countries, because they need that proficiency. So in time to come, if you make yourself proficient in particular fields, and that is there for everyone to see, you have an interest, you hone that interest, and in time to come, that interest will become a part of a very large thinking. And I believe that once we get that going, there is nothing to stop us, because there is nothing before us. We are a young country. We can fit the bill. We need to be able to think about it seriously and work at it with all our might. If we do that, nothing can stop us. So the confidence in ourselves, that's the other thing, is very, very important. Psychologically, it's the confidence that you have. And educationally, it's how you build yourself up, and then discipline. And I think if you work like that, that gap can only be filled by you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think it was really good to hear what we are not at a threshold. Obviously, we have a lot of capabilities, we youth, and what you have correctly said, that the future is for you, that is for us, and we'll have to work today to make that better. And I think that was really thoughtful. Thank you so much, ma'am. And we have come to the end of this segment as well. I have tried to incorporate most of the questions which were related to this webinar, and we have got all the answers. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir. Now we move on to the next segment of this webinar. So let me just take this opportunity to thank all of you. I feel that if the thoughts exchanged today
Mr.
makes a...
Antony, can I just come in here?
Yeah,
I would
ma'am.
really like, I mean, I love these webinars and they are really very interesting, enthusiastic and all that. But this happens between just the three of us. You know, I think that a time is going to come when even these webinars need to move out into such a way that there is a regular kind of conversation that takes place between the person who sets it up, the people who are supposed to be those very, very honored guests, and all those people who make those honored guests the honored guests. So, yes. I mean, we at least must get to see the faces of all those people who've done, who've been so supportive of us, listening to us during this period of time. And then we need to be able to say a big, big thank you and say, it's you people that keep us going and keep our minds sticking and make us think a little bit about where we need to go next. And it's the ideas that come out of you that make us relevant in our own selves. So frankly, I think these webinars, we need to do something about them where we are able to actually see all the others and talk to all the others too. You know?
Right.
I get very sort of, I can't see them, and I think it's very unfair that they have to listen to us and not get the opportunity to say something themselves.
So guys, as ma'am requested, we can just do one thing. We can just put on our cameras and we will just take a picture. I was actually coming to it, ma'am, but since you said it now, we will do it. So yeah, we will just turn on your cameras.
I'd love to be able to say I attended a webinar. There were 25 of us, and here are our pictures. I mean, otherwise, no one's going to believe me. They'll think it was just you, me, and Mr. Cheriyan.
Sure, ma'am, sure. So, guys, those of you who can turn on your cameras, please turn it on. We will take a group picture.
Yeah, that would be so nice. Yeah. Please take the picture, yeah. So, Maya, you can also come into it, you know, a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
So, I am just taking a screenshot. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful idea, ma'am. Yes, I agree that I think the interaction, the level of discussion has to go up, and the participation definitely, you know.
Yeah, please, the next slot so that we can see the next slot.
Okay, there is a next slot.
Yeah. There's Chandrakala ji.
Oh, yes, yes.
And there's a whole lot, yeah. Shilpa's been there like a regular thing, but okay.
Wonderful. So I have clicked some pictures. I will definitely share. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, you need to send them to all of us.
Definitely, definitely.
Okay, now there's Melvin. And okay, can we have the others who are not there? Okay, Melvin and Philo was there. Okay, come on.
So guys, those of you who can,
Is that a foot by any chance, Mr. Antony?
Sorry, ma'am?
Or a hand? No, I'm just looking to see. Was a hand or a foot? Okay. Got us?
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And we have now come to this end of this wonderful webinar. So I was just telling that if I feel that if thoughts exchanged today makes a difference in any one person's life or thought process, then the purpose of this webinar seems to fit in somewhere. So let me take this opportunity to sincerely thank you, madam, for allowing your time and more than that, sharing your views with us during these testing times. Your participation today really has shown that leaders are also by the people and for the people. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, and thank all of you.
Definitely.
All those whose faces I can see before me and those that I don't and I can't. Thank you, Mr. George. Please give my best regards to Pradeep ji. And that was a really interesting on the NGOs. Guys, I forgot private, government, self-employment and NGOs. That's a fourth area. Yeah. Okay. Correct. Thanks. Great to see you all. Look forward to seeing you all again sometime soon.
So
thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to also thank Mr. George and all of us who have joined us today on this call. And I would just take the liberty of all your presence to show you the next webinar poster to all of you. And I am just presenting it. And this is happening on next Sunday. There is another issue which I'm going to address. So I hope my screen is visible. This is just a poster. So this is a webinar which I'm planning next Sunday. This is the
How
topic what I've given is "We Are One Among You." So we have our guest, Dr. Akai Padmashali, who is joining from Bangalore. She is a transgender rights activist and a recent politician. And we have Mr. Karan Vik, who is from Jaipur, who is a fashion designer and LGBTQ rights activist. So just introducing it to all of you. And I would definitely extend the invite and to all of you for this webinar also. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you for your support, ma'am. It was wonderful to have you and all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Able to keep it
Good
nice.
night.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening, all of you.
Good evening.